welcome back. Here is our next case study from CA Final Paper 3, ICA booklet on MCQs and case-based scenarios. Case study number 24. Messrs. IM & Co. Chartered Accountants is a newly started firm. Their first assignment was to conduct a statutory audit of CD Crackers Limited, a cracker manufacturing company. Since it was their first audit, the partners immediately accepted the work without paying attention to the relevant procedures. They started their audit work from 25th of May 2020 for the financial year, say previous year ending on 31st of March 2020. During the course of audit, the auditors requested for the financials of the preceding previous year along with the details of transactions till 25th of May of the current year. The management, however, argued that both the details are out of the scope of audit and hence they cannot provide the details. However, after repeated requests from the auditors, they finally provided in September 2020. It was suspected that the senior accountant could have indulged in a fraud amounting to 117 lakh. However, on further investigation by management, it was found that there was a gross mistake on the part of accountant who had wrongly debited and credited certain accounts by mistake, which amounted to 80 lakhs. The company provided proper and correct evidence for the balance amount. Hence, the auditors were strongly convinced that no fraud had taken place. Due to the absence of the audit committee, the auditors suggested to the directors to replace the existing accountant as he was poor in basic accounting skills. Initially, the company thought of handing over the tax audit work to the previous auditor. However, since they had a bad experience last year in the form of an argument regarding the contents to be included in the tax audit report, especially with respect to the disclosure of key ratios, it was decided that IM & Co. shall also act as tax auditors. After the conclusion of the audit, Mr. I, one of the partners of the firm, was confused as to whether the firm would be held guilty of professional misconduct for the possible violation of any of the provisions of Chartered Accountants Act. He contacted Mr. M, his partner, to get clarified about the doubt. Messrs. Hire Private Limited, a recruitment agency, contacted Mr. I regarding a vacancy in one of the leading manufacturing companies. Eventually, Mr. I resigned as a partner of IM & Co. and joined the company. The agency raised an invoice for the service rendered by them, which amounted to 0.2% of the CTC offered. Mr. I agreed to pay the amount. However, since his friend was a manager of that agency, he received full discount on the invoice. So it is irrespective of the fact that he received a discount or not, but initially he agreed to pay the amount. Please do remember this in your mind, because he'll be held guilty of this particular act. Angered by the act of resignation, Mr. M filed a complaint with the ICAI stating that Mr. I had violated the provisions of Chartered Accountants Act and is held guilty for professional misconduct. Having come to know that Mr. M was one who had filed a complaint against him, Mr. I decided to take revenge. While thinking for a suitable reason to file a complaint, he recalled the fact that Mr. M was engaged as a registration authority for obtaining digital signatures for his clients. Noting the same, he filed a complaint against Mr. M, stating that he was held guilty of misconduct for violating the provisions of Chartered Accountants Act. So, based on the above facts, answer the following questions. So, hope you have understood this case study. So, there are three places where this particular firm will be held guilty of professional misconduct. You will be identifying this in the MCQs that were given below. Come, let's answer these questions first. 24.1. What would you infer from the situation given in point 1 above? So what is point 1? Let's quickly go through point 1. In the point 1, it has been asked that auditors requested for financials of the preceding financial year along with the details of transactions till 25th of May of the current year. The management, however, argued that the both are outside the scope of audit and they cannot be provided. However, after repeated requests from the auditor, they finally provided in September 2020. So now we need to check what was the options given. Is the management correct saying that the auditor has no scope upon that the documents which were requested by the auditor or out of the scope of audit? No. Therefore, the management intention is not correct. And moreover, the auditor has every right to ask for those details. Now, let us go through each and every option and finalize the one. Option A says management was right. Is that so? No, the management is not correct. Option B says the auditors have the right to ask details only to the preceding previous year and not the details of transactions till 25th of May of current year. Is that so? No. The auditor has every right to ask for the details till the date of his signs. Okay, till the date the financial statements are prepared, processed, and everything is ready, kept ready, because there can be an after the balance sheet date events that are occurring after the balance sheet date and have a significant effect on the results of financial statements. And therefore option B is also wrong. Option C says both the auditors and the management have the right to ask both the details and the right to not to provide both the details. This option is saying they have right to ask, but both of them have right to decline the request also. Is that so? No, this is an illogical option that was given to us. Option D says the auditor have the right to ask both the details. The management's contention that it is out of the scope of audit is wrong. Therefore, option D is the correct option. We'll go through the next question. Question number 24.2. Is Messrs. IM and Co. guilty of professional misconduct for violating any of the provisions of Chartered Accountant Acts? If so, as per which clause? You might have observed that this particular firm has accepted the statutory audit and the tax audit, which was previously being dealt by another auditor. You might have observed this here. It has accepted or statutory audit of CD Crackers Private Limited. As this was their first audit, they have neglected all the relevant procedures. It means they need to consult their previous auditor in writing. So this was the particular point that IM and Co. Chartered Accountants has missed, and therefore they are guilty of professional misconduct under clause 8 of part 1 of first schedule, and therefore option B is the correct option. We'll go through the next question. Before going, clause 1 of part 1 of second schedule and the clause 2 of part 2 of second schedule, if you have read through these, gone through these professional ethics, then you might have easily identified that clause option A and option C, option D are nowhere relevant to the question. Okay, they're straight away guilty of misconduct under clause 8 because they have failed to communicate with the previous auditor in writing. And then let's go to the next question. 24.3. Is Mr. I guilty of professional misconduct? If so, under what clause? So you need to go through the question where Mr. I has been dealt up. See, Mr. M filed a complaint with the Chartered ICAI stating that Mr. I has violated the provisions of Chartered Accountants Act. What were the provisions that were violated by Mr. I? Because if you have gone through the previous paragraphs, Mr. I resigned the partnership and joined the company and the agents, and he has agreed to give an amount equivalent to 0.2% of its CTC to that agency company, right? So he has agreed to share his remuneration, whatever profits, salary, whatever it is. So he has agreed to share his professional receipts. Therefore, he is guilty of professional misconduct. Hope you are clear. And therefore, Mr. I, is Mr. I guilty of professional misconduct? Yes, he is held guilty of professional misconduct. But under what clause? It's under clause 1 of part 2 of first schedule, wherein a CA and CA in service is agreeing to share his professional receipts. So option D is the correct option. If you have gone through these professional ethics, you will straightforward answer these questions. Is Mr. M guilty of professional misconduct? If so, under what clause? What Mr. M has done so that he'll be held guilty of professional misconduct? See, mm, we'll read here from here. On fifth line of the last paragraph. While thinking for a suitable reason to file a complaint, he means Mr. I recalled the fact that Mr. M was engaged as a registration authority for obtaining digital signature for his clients. Quoting the same, he filed a complaint against Mr. M, stating that he was guilty of misconduct. Is he held guilty of professional misconduct? No, because the recent decisions of Ethical Standards Board, wherein if you have gone through this third point, see, a chartered accountant in practice may engage himself as a registration authority for obtaining digital signatures for clients. So, Mr. M is nowhere guilty of professional misconduct because he is abide. He is within the boundaries that were set by the Ethics and Ethical Standard Board. Therefore, Mr. M is not guilty of professional misconduct. Therefore, option A, no, Mr. M is not guilty of professional misconduct is the correct option. And all other options you can straight away neglect them because Mr. M is nowhere guilty. And if he is not guilty, then the question of which clause, which part, and which schedule doesn't arise. So with this, we have completed 24 case studies. If you find these videos helpful, please do like, share, and subscribe. Do share with your friends and help them to revise at the earliest. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.